Okay, hello and welcome everyone. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com and welcome to today's event. We are really excited to be able to host this one. It is all about manufacturing and the new Microsoft Dynamics AX. It's an area that is really evolving quickly with the new release, and it's great to have two key Microsoft representatives here to present today. We're joined by Colin Masson, Global Industry Director for Manufacturing, and Mai-Britt Winther. She is a Senior Program Manager for Dynamics AX. So to get this event started, please know that we do invite you in the audience to add your feedback and ask questions during the event. You can use the Q&A panel that you should see to the right of the slides to ask your questions at any point. Colin and Mai-Britt will make time at the end for those. And without further delay, let me hand things off to Colin.
Thanks very much, Jason. So let's jump straight in. As Jason said, we'll try and leave as much time as we can at the end for questions, and I do want to make sure that we give Mai-Britt as much time as possible to show you the product and some of the things that we've been doing. But it's really great to be on a call on manufacturing. We're seeing a resurgence and interest in manufacturing. And while we're saying manufacturing and the new Microsoft Dynamics AX, I should probably say I'm seeing kind of a new manufacturing as well. A lot of what we're seeing is really a fundamental change in the way manufacturers are thinking about their business. And I want to take you through some of those changes that we're seeing, some case studies, and then we'll switch to Mai-Britt for a look at the new AX. But really, fundamentally, what we're seeing around the globe, they're calling it different things. They're calling it Industry 4.0 in Germany. Here in the US, a lot of discussion around smart manufacturing. But what I think is different this time around and why they're calling it the fourth industrial revolution is the ability to tap into those smart manufactured products after they've left the factory and really put the customer experience at the center of everything that a manufacturer is doing. And that's the fundamental transformation we're seeing, and that means new business models being created, all of which means, of course, new expectations for enterprise software. But I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, so let me get to the next one. And this kind of, the builds aren't working on this for a particular medium, and I will send the slides to anyone who shoots me an email. But the transformation we're seeing is not just inside the four walls of manufacturing. So it's not just about using more automation and using all of the smart meters or smart controllers that we can put inside to improve operations. That's still important. Don't get me wrong. We're still very focused on high quality, right first time initiatives, lean, all of those still apply. But the real transformation we're seeing is really, as I mentioned earlier, is really rethinking the whole business and how the customer experiences your products. Sometimes I'm hearing industrial equipment manufacturers or automotive, high-tech, consumer goods really talk about services more than the product itself. So really the servitization, if you will, of manufacturing is the big Uber trend, if you will, the big overarching term that's really fundamentally changing the speed of business, the expectations of whether they're business-to-business consumers that are using industrial equipment in their own manufacturing environment, or it's a consumer products company with a smart coffee machine or a connected car. So B2B and B2C, our expectations have changed, and that has translated into manufacturing of across all verticals. And if you think I'm smoking dope, not quite sure how that translates, but if you think I'm maybe being a bit too optimistic, here's some sort of third-party research I just wanted to share on. This stuff is happening now. This digital transformation of manufacturing has been going on for some time. And when I talk to some of the case studies, you'll kind of see that. But here's some fairly recent data showing that those companies that are investing in kind of new smart connected products and claim to have an IoT initiative of some sort increased their revenues by 16% in 2014. And significantly, almost 80% of manufacturers surveyed are using some form of Internet of Things technology to track customers' products or do security, loss prevention, or traditional supply chain visibility and tracking. And all of this sort of underpinned by the fact that most executives now believe that the key differentiator for their business is really the customer experience. A couple more nuggets in the next slide, just showing that for industrial equipment manufacturers, for example, they're getting close to 30% revenue increase. So that transition from selling just the manufactured or engineered product to selling the service and that more comprehensive customer lifetime value is making that difference. It's that huge increase in margin. That's what's driving this interest in smart connected products and what you can do with the data that you get once the customer is using that in their own manufacturing facility, in their home, or wherever. And interestingly enough, we always talk about the fact that Internet of Things isn't necessarily new to manufacturers. Well, this kind of shows that. 40% of industrial manufacturers already use digital technologies to monitor the products that they've sold to customers. So what are some of the things that Microsoft is doing in this space, and then we'll talk about how we kind of bring all of those together in the new Dynamics AX. So I sprinkled in a few case studies just to illustrate what we're doing across manufacturing. I'm not going to show the videos here, but as I said earlier, those of you who want the deck, you can basically click on these links and it will take you to these videos. But Rockwell is a great, one of the premier, I believe they're the largest pure industrial equipment manufacturer in the world, and they've chosen to use Microsoft for their approach to servitization, where in this case we're talking about oil field services, where they're remotely monitoring everything from the pipelines to the fuel dispensers and tank levels in the gas stations, and they're using Azure Internet of Things technology to do that. And there's a great video there if you want to get deeper into that. So the fact that the leader in industrial automation is using Microsoft technology to incubate and develop their new services business, I think is key. This is a more fun one. I think if we've got partners and people that know Dynamics well on the call, you'll have heard us talk about what we're doing with the Lotus Formula One team. And I had a chance to hear Thomas again at Convergence in Barcelona just a week or so ago. And what really strikes me is the speed of business in Formula One. And between races, 30% of the car gets replaced in some shape or form, and they have to operate that supply chain. They're doing 3D printing of metal parts that get put into that next race. So it's kind of an extreme form of what many of us are dealing with when we think we have to keep pace with new product introductions and new configurations. Just imagine what it's like for a Lotus Formula One team. But what is really interesting is they're using AX not just for manufacturing and supply chain. Now they're starting to use our Azure Internet of Things technology to analyze the data that's coming from the car. You're collecting 2 gigabits of data per lap, and then they're using Microsoft's machine learning to look for the patterns and predict failures and look for potential improvements that they can make in near real time. And then they're using Dynamics CRM to actually manage all of the events and promotions and all the fans that they have. So it's kind of a fun, sexy example, high-tech manufacturing. So, but it really does emphasize that speed of business. I like to throw this example in because I think what we tend to forget is as manufacturers are looking for going through this digital transformation, they're creating new business models, you need a system that can keep pace. And very often what they don't want to do is disrupt their traditional business while they're incubating these new businesses. So if you are familiar with Kodak Alaris, it's kind of a new imaging company that was created. It was effectively a $1.2 billion startup. They needed new business systems to go with that, and it's a great example of how they were able to take AX and take advantage of the ability to deploy that on the cloud and get a whole new business going, and of course change as they discover what that new business is going to become. And that's kind of a recurring theme that we're seeing across manufacturing as people look at these new smart connected products. They need to deliver new services. They need a system to incubate those new businesses and that can continuously adapt and change as they explore those new opportunities. So it's a great example. Another one I like to throw in, just because it's another one of the key trends that we're seeing in manufacturing is, apart from Internet of Things, there's obviously, I mentioned 3D printing with Lotus, is we're really seeing robotics take off in the shop floor just to keep pace with all of the changes, the new products, the new configurations that companies are having to deal with. And I encourage you to watch this particular video, as it really gives you a sense of everything that Microsoft can do, from Windows powering the robot arms that you see in the story there, to the fact that they are overcoming the skills gap in manufacturing by remotely connecting to the operator, actually detecting who that operator is and whether or not they are qualified or skilled enough to reprogram the robot, and if not, providing that remote assistance. So it's an IoT story, it's an Industry 4.0 story, and of course I mention them because they're also running Dynamics AX to run their core business. ThyssenKrupp is a great example of that servitization of manufacturing, where elevators are industrial pieces of equipment, but really now they are selling the experience of moving people predictably and safely. And in that process, they've really started to remotely monitor all of those elevators and rethink how they actually deliver that experience. And in fact, they actually maintain many of their competitors' elevators, and the key differentiator here is their ability to actually remotely monitor them, predict when they're going to fail, and improve customer service that way. So again, a great example of how manufacturers are rethinking their business. But a lot of this, I just wanted to put this one in because I really wanted to stress that this isn't new to us as the Microsoft Dynamics team. We've been seeing this transformation in manufacturing coming. We've been dealing with the requirements to have an agile shop floor for some time, and of course many of you will know that Dell runs their core manufacturing on Dynamics AX. So to net it all out, the transformations we're seeing, all of that digital convergence, the fact that we have smart connected products, we've had smart machines in manufacturing for a long time. What's different now is that we're putting that smarts out in the customer's products, and what's really different is we're now trying to create new business models around the fact that we can remotely connect to them and change the customer experience and get differentiation from doing that. So the elements, if you think back to all of those case studies and what you may be trying to do within your own manufacturing business, there's 4 key elements there. There's that device connectivity and management. There's the fact that you need to have dashboards and get insights into what's going on, whether it's the devices that are telling you that, whether you're listening to social channels or you're monitoring your supply chain. All of that needs to be brought together in context through dashboards. And then there's another level that we're seeing people take these solutions to, where they're starting to apply techniques like machine learning and advanced analytics to start doing things like predict failures and therefore get into predictive maintenance scenarios. And ultimately, our job as Dynamics team is to really bring all of those capabilities together for manufacturers in enterprise software that blends business productivity and process optimization in an agile platform. And on the slide, you'll kind of get a taste of all the different things that Microsoft does to deliver this digital transformation for manufacturers. But at the center there, it's our job to really bring the best of Microsoft together across all of those different capabilities. So with that, couple of slides just before we get to Mai-Britt. We're kind of getting recognized, so these are sort of third-party quotes for our specific focus on manufacturing and what we're doing to really enable this new digital transformation. Again, if you ask me for the slides, all of these are linked to the original source articles, but really I think a recognition that Microsoft's legacy in manufacturing is being taken forward and enhanced as we see the fourth industrial revolution start to take shape. But let's talk about the new Dynamics AX and how that kind of is also making that same noise in manufacturing. And as I alluded to earlier, we're kind of bringing together everything for the new speed of business that the fourth industrial revolution is driving and frankly requires. And so those elements that I talked to earlier of advanced analytics, or as you see on the slide here, machine learning and big data, Internet of Things, and being able to integrate those into a modern enterprise software platform built for the future and built for this new speed of business is really what we've done with the new Dynamics AX. It leverages the cloud, as I kind of alluded to with the Kodak Alaris story, the ability to get that new business, incubate it, up and running, scale it with confidence as it grows, is resonating really well with those new innovators in manufacturing. We do leverage proven business logic, so even though it's a new platform, the fact that we've taken forward all the investment we've made in business logic and our partners have made in business logic is obviously significant, and the fact that we can cross requirements from retail to supply chain production and into services areas of your business gives you that flexibility to adapt to the digital transformation and the new business models that are being conceived in your organization. And of course, we've had to think about the new world of which we're seeing on manufacturing, a lot of adoption of mobile devices on the shop floor, in supply chain, and so our new intelligent user interface, which you'll see in just a few minutes from Mai-Britt, has really been designed for that future and the ability to keep pace with devices as they change in form factor has really been key for us there. And before I hand over to Mai-Britt, really just that we're already seeing that recognition that this is something fundamentally different from Microsoft in bringing together all the best of Microsoft in enterprise software and built for this new future. So again, plenty of recognition that we're seeing there. So let's make this real and have Mai-Britt show you what the new AX looks like in manufacturing. Obviously, we've got limited time here, so we're not taking you through a full deep dive, but we want to give you some idea of what's possible with the new Dynamics AX. So if you're ready, Mai-Britt, over to you.
Super. Cool. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen here because we're going to move into the application instead. And if it's correct that Colin says we have really been trying to, at least for the last couple of years, I've been working on this new AX in the cloud, now officially just named AX, no version behind it. I'm from the production shop floor team, so one of the things that we have been looking at is obviously not only getting it up in the cloud, making it more productive for the different kinds of personas that work in manufacturing, but also looking at what can this whole new IoT themed thinking, how can we incorporate that into AX? And we're going to start out by having a look at what is here and now available for AX. And then we're going to go a bit over into my little playpen, and we're going to do a little bit of looking around what we're toying with at the moment, but eventually should come out to the broader public at some point in time in some form or the other. But if we start looking at Dynamics AX, this is obviously a cloud-hosted solution. I assume some of you might have looked at Adrian Orth's presentation from last week on the new UI, and it could be a recap for you guys to hear it again, but we will have to utilize the same UI, obviously. We have been introducing these what we call workspaces. And the whole idea of a workspace is obviously to try and gather as much work-related actions into one place so that we avoid having to send the user out in this ultimately famous burger menu, which we call it. We want to avoid that you have to click around, have to go down, deep down 5 levels to figure out what do you need to do, and it should be at your fingertips. So for one of the personas that we've worked on, and this is the shop floor supervisor, we call him Lars in our persona gallery, we have interviewed God knows how many partners and customers to figure out what is the vital information that he needs to see when he comes in the morning. He has his work schedule ahead of him. He knows the work is on his shift and everything. So by using these kind of very customer-obsessed iterations, we not only get to the space that you see here, but we continuously evolve on it. And you will probably also see the next time this is going to be demoed, there will be new pieces that have been added to it. And that's the beauty of this new way that we are now developing this whole feature set that we have. Now, the production flow management workspace, as I said, has been designed for Lars, and the most important thing for him is obviously to make sure that what he sees in his organization is relevant to him. He shouldn't see, for instance, all the jobs and activities going on the complete shop floor. He should be able to filter down only on his specific part of the shop floor. So he has the ability to go in and configure his workspace. And the workspace consists of this part here of 3 main areas. We have this simple summary area that is just for the quick overview on where are we at the moment, which is in the pipe, what is in the pipeline, and is anything important for me to know, for instance, that I have one who's not going to be there today. Then we have a middle section, which is probably the most important information for him right here, right now, and that is what is going on. So these are the jobs currently in progress or about to start, and he will have some simple actions that he can use for these jobs. We're going to get back to that in a moment. But he will have other kinds of activities or overviews, you can call these tabs when we get to them. Utmost to the right, we have the link section, and the aim is for us to have Lars work in this workspace approximately 90% of his time. There will be cases where he needs to approve some time and attendance or whatever, where he needs to go other places, but that should be available through his links, so he still doesn't have to neither use the global search nor has to go through the burger menu to figure out where he needs to find that information he needs. I think I didn't choose a setting, but let me just filter down so we only see what's relevant for this persona here. So this seems a bit more realistic instead of 50 orders for this workday. The important thing obviously is what is to be done today. You could have spillovers from the night shift or the other day shift or whatever, and you'd be able to see from your chart over here what is still not completed, so what do you still have in progress? Because we have this job list, we also have some new abilities for Lars to be quickly at his decision making. And he can therefore go in and reprioritize the way that he wants to have the jobs executed, even though the assumption here is that you have been scheduling the production jobs, and therefore you have this list that comes up that you can work with, but you would still be able to reshuffle the list during the day. He can go in and he can toggle that the priority of this order is higher than the other order, and so it will move up as the next job for the machine operator to pick. He could, for that matter, reassign to other resources, and he can generally just view progress, what's going on at the moment with this order. Now, we have a little bit of other things in this middle section, the meat section, so to speak. We have something we call jobs with deviations, and the whole intent of this, and this is something that you'll see in the next couple of iterations evolve more and more, and some of it is based actually also on feedback from Lotus, as Colin referred to. They gave great input to this. So these are some elements that we will involve more and more on, but essentially when Lars goes and finishes up his day, he needs to be able to make sure that there are no differences and the deviations aren't too big. He will have the list of all the places where we have where the tolerances haven't been met, and we have too many differences, and we need to go in and have a view. He will then be able to drill down, figure out which kind of action, or it could be even incorrect keyed and reported as finished quantity that he needs to adjust. But this will be his checklist before he ends his work. Some simple things that might be relevant for him to also have quickly at his hands. His team that surrounds him in his work on the shop floor, where he can quickly also register if someone calls in and says, for some reason I'm not coming in today. And his favorite contacts for him to quickly get in contact with the different kinds of other in the organization. Now, I haven't built this in here, but you will be able to, as you can see, a phone number up here to do a Skype call. But I've closed down my Skype, so we're not going to do that at least. To the left, we have a little new tile here called Production Orders to Release. Now, one of the things that we have had pushback on to start considering and make more easy for both the planner but also the shop floor supervisor is to be able to go in and have a view on what can actually be released. But before we release, let me just have a view on, is the material actually available? So I don't, by mistake, release something that cannot be started. I might still want to release it, even though I do not have all the material, because I know it's just going to be in time before the production starts. But this view in itself gives you the picture on where am I at the moment, this production job or this production order with these jobs I'm about to start, will it be feasible or not? We have different kinds of options, obviously, because we can just go ahead and release everything that is marked as ready to be released. Or if there's any issue with something, we can start investigating what exactly, which item, which raw material, which component is my critical mass in this next production order. When you start a new production order and it hasn't been updated, we're using standard AX functionality here, just running through the master scheduling and planning and everything. But if you've just created a production order and it hasn't been picked up yet, you would be able to see with a little question mark that it hasn't been run yet. So what you do is you update the critical on hand, and then the system will do this check, just like when you do a simple net requirement from a sales order line. You do the same here, but you'll be able to get the result. You will also therefore be able to view the explosion of the actual order to see the packing information and everything. But at the end of the day, this is the pre-step for Lars to figure out whether he can release more to the shop floor or not. Let me just close this down. There we go. But one of the things about these tiles is, obviously, due to performance, we can't update them all the time because that will simply be sitting there and just trying to ping fun updates. So if you're in a situation where you might have released something and you need to know exactly the new count, there is a little function that you can go in and begin the update now so that you can see the next update is in 4 minutes. So my tile wouldn't be refreshed until 4 minutes. Now the planned absences is just a bit the same, where you go in and you'll be able to see everything that has been planned so far. We have one on family leave here. But that will just give you an overview if you for some reason can't remember everything that you have, all the people who have different kinds of planned absences for the period. If we look to the right, the typical links that you have are the typical places where Lars would go and make an extra lookup, or for that matter, time and attendance, where he has to both calculate and approve based on the journals that have been posted. To make it easier for him, and it could be because he needs to do, what do I know, a trial production or anything else, a rush production order coming in, he would also be able to, from the workspace, to go in and create a new production order. No, there we go. And let me just say, we just say one. And as soon as he then starts to estimate and schedule the jobs, it will be picked up immediately. So this gives him the flexibility to also be agile when he needs to. Obviously, everything here is security control, so for what matter it can be, if he's not allowed to do this, obviously that will not be done then. So let me just say we schedule our jobs immediately. And we're just going to be, there we go. And we just wait for the update. And you would just close the production order again. And when you update this workspace, then you'll have the jobs coming up here. Now, depending on what item I chose, it might be outside of this range here because I chose D003 and he has D001. But he could then go in and configure the workspace and see it again. But all this is where we see Lars work. And why does he have a workspace now? Because traditionally Lars has been placed behind a computer once or twice or a couple of times during the day, and then he's running around on the shop floor. This workspace he can have on his phone, on his tablet, whatever, because he can just use it. It's just simple web page that he's viewing. So he would be able to have the information with him here now, instead of having to revert back with his papers and update the system when he comes to his desk. If we just go and have a look at imagining a bit, what could life be like for Lars if he had even more insights? And this is where we jump to our little playpen and where we see actually what are we looking at the moment. And again, this is based on the feedback we have from customers we are engaging with on the topic of Internet of Things. And not only in specifically Internet of Things, but just also in generally about what can you do when you have a lot of information residing outside of AX. Because there's no doubt that you have a lot of sensor data, you have machine data, it could be takt time, it can be throughput, it can be whatever you have. And everything there can be taken in and also evaluated together. And this is a little stale for me right now, so we're just going to see if we can press it again. That is because it's been idle for too long. This is my little development cloud. So we would just have that comes again. Let's see. It now has to generate some data so that you can see what it's about. And that takes a short time because without data it will be irrelevant to show. Now, one of the things that we have been looking at is Lars monitors his shop floor, and on the shop floor there's a lot of machines. So the classical one for IoT is obviously time and temp, or for this matter also humidity. And we have just added in some simple graphs here, and we're going to go to in a moment to see what actually lies behind it. And right now, I just hit a spike. We had some thresholds being set up that says if you reach a certain spike or a certain tolerance level, you need to inform me. So I will get the information now in AX, letting me know something is going wrong with this machine. Now, in order for Lars to quickly react, he would be able to just filter immediately on the impacted jobs that are on the floor based on this information he gets. And he will have an overview of what is actually the impact of the different kinds of jobs and how much do we have in progress. These are just simple graphs, like Power BI graphs or whatever. Well, but this is just traditional AX data that we have consumed and we're presenting in another way. So the interesting part here is actually, if we just go back 1 second and talk about the spike. Now what we did was actually, we use what Azure has of so many great things in their Azure IoT suite. We had a simple sensor that we hooked up, and obviously any kind of, just like KUKA, any kind of robotics or electronic device that uses the Windows operating system would be cool. But we do also have a lot of different kinds of devices that may not just have that system and use other kinds of ways of communicating. So we picked up the temperature via some kind of Bluetooth and wireless in this case, and then we send it up to Azure. Because we're running on Azure, we also have the Azure Stream Analytics up and running with this. So we set up some thresholds. So we put in the data streams. So we said, please monitor these sensors from this machine. And in this case, it was the humidity and it was the temperature. Please monitor them. We put in some thresholds in Azure in the Event Hub. And then it was just simply filtering and listening to the data. And as soon as that data was received and exceeded our threshold, we received an event back into AX, and then got back to us up in the cloud where we're also at. So this little way is just to show that we don't want data as like that in AX. Well, we want to be able to quickly connect and just take them into our decision-making process and be informed. It's not like revolutionary new. As Colin said, this has been going on for some years, some industries. But just by making it more usable for AX, meaning in the sense that we're doing the plumbing, so to speak, would probably also allow other customer types and industries to pick up on this way of doing things. So let's go back and have a look. These were the impacted jobs that came out of the result. Now, what we did was we looked at, okay, what would be the next step you do? As Lars, you don't need to be on the individual little itty-gritty line and have to move everything around. You want the system to make an informed decision for you. But you would have some different parameters you would work by. And so we have some different outlooks up here, 5 in all, that have been predefined by us, or should be predefined by the system. And the system has indicated that deliver most orders. If we look at that, and we look at all the metrics that we measure against, this seems like the best option. Because the weighing and everything taken into account, you have basically an even little line everywhere. If I went to look at something else, I would see that it would have another impact. And I can even go in and say, you know what? Seriously, I would like to prefer my priority customers because customer service is the key for us. We're delivering everything around the customer experience. So we would prioritize actually our priority customers instead of just delivering most orders. Now, this information that we have here, and let me just jump to another screen because I want to explain where I get it from. A lot of the information is obviously coming from AX itself. We can make KPIs on the number of delayed orders and the number of delayed priority customer orders. And we can also go in and calculate how much did we actually utilize our resources. One thing that we took out and we said we might not be able to predict that precisely was the scrap. And this is where we make use of machine learning, because ultimately the system, or Azure, Cortana Analytics, can be that clever and go in, together with the ML, and analyze a bunch of data and see patterns that we cannot see. It might be that if we look at this combination, that if we run this or produce this product on that kind of resource, that machine, compared to another one, it might not produce as much scrap, but eventually there might be other factors that can come into account. So in the end, we actually end up with more return orders. So all these kinds of elements that is a bit like blurry to us because we can't really see the correlations. This is where machine learning can go and help us become much more effective in our decision making. So for exactly this little part, the predicted scrap, we take AX data, we push it out, we have a machine learning model that will look for different kinds of patterns, and then it will come back and show us the actual results here when we go and we compare. And you would see that, I just need to go back to this one, there will be differences where it goes up and down, but it will all be something coming back from Azure to us that we observe, and then we just put it into our bigger equation and we let the system weigh against these and then come up with a suggestion for us. Now these are some of the elements that we are playing with at the moment, because this is where we see that traditional manufacturing businesses, even though they have all this data scattered around, they are not really, not everyone is using it to the full extent. Mind you, there are examples like KUKA and ThyssenKrupp and all the others that are really like into this and are very effective at it. But we also have to look at the broader picture on all the different kinds of other companies that are out there. And there is a lot of machine data that already resides in this industry. So by pulling that in now and being able to make more informed decisions together with AX data will help us to go in and make a better choice, hopefully. Now you could think this even further where you say, okay, but since this is what's happening, AX will start immediately blocking the machine. It will send off the notification that this machine needs to be looked at or whatever. And then the ultimate holy and perfect world, the machine would never be down, because obviously the machine manufacturer would be running predictive and preventive maintenance IoT scenarios where he would have informed us that you would have this machine there will go down for maintenance on that day, so you can already start rerouting even before that. But let's just start with saying what you as a customer in your own environment can start doing. And this is what we are looking at trying to enhance more. So what you're seeing right now is prototype thinking, because we need to also set off some light bulbs at different kinds of customers and partners to come up with more and more of these scenarios, because at the end of the day, we would like to figure out what kind of base functions we will build into AX to support all these different kinds of IoT scenarios. So Colin, I think I have been speaking for a long time now. I'll just stop sharing at the moment so I can see on the chat, and I can give it to you, Colin, so you can just...
Okay, so if you want to monitor the questions, I think we had one on...
Yes, I'll do that.
And we had one on Azure. What is Azure? So
oh, hang on, I need to, that was the chat. I need to find the Q&A up here.
Yeah, I've responded to that one, but
Super.
Let's open it up for questions. All I'll do while we're waiting for those questions to come in is really just wanted to wrap up from a sort of overall context point of view in manufacturing. We've talked a lot today about this second box on the slide you're looking at right now. How could we really start to connect operations and services using Dynamics AX? Just wanted to make everyone on the call aware that we have solutions that we are working on across the full spectrum of manufacturing, from how do we help with idea management and taking all the data you're going to get from those smart connected products and using that to start designing the next generation of products. So start to do some digital listening and use that to feed in to that ever accelerating rate of new product introduction. Then, of course, there's things we can do with our CRM capabilities around connecting marketing, sales, and service, including getting into field service. And then there are things we're doing around experiences in car or in showroom, in retail, in supply chain with everything from Connect to some exciting stuff we're starting to do with HoloLens. So I didn't want people to forget about all the other things that we can do in manufacturing. Do you want people to take a look if they want to get more on the new AX? Then on the website we have some demos that you didn't have time to go in today, Mai-Britt, on what do all the workspaces look like, and so how do you configure or introduce a new product is one of the demos that are there. How do you do intelligent order fulfillment? We have a demo there as well. And just to make that easier for people to find, last slide I promise, there is actually a blog that we did just before Convergence, which will give you the pointers to the new AX, what is all the technology components we talked about, links to those various other demos of what we can do in manufacturing and supply chain. Here's our email addresses. I've already got a bunch of emails requesting the deck. I will share that out. And then if you want to just follow what we are doing and where we are on Dynamics or in manufacturing specifically, or on this brave new world of the Internet of Things, I've put some of the Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen there. But let's open it up for questions now. Do you want to take any of those? Okay.
There's a lot coming in now. That's cool. That's the way we want it. So let's start with Race. And it's like, our company is into food and beverage and catering. How does Dynamics AX, or how Dynamics AX is suitable for F&B industry where requirements are very dynamic and subject to last-minute change for events and functions? And what kind of manufacturing is more suitable? So we do actually have great representation of partners in that kind of verticals. And obviously everyone is looking at the process-related industries, but I guess that if you're saying you're into catering, it's perhaps more like distributing the food out to it and perhaps having some simple assembly processes on doing the food. But there are definitely some good also partners that deal within these sections. And we have some base functionality in AX that supports that kind of manufacturing process, because we can be a bit more mixed mode by having this. Colin, any other feedback to that?
I think that's great. There's obviously a lot we can look at in terms of, it kind of alluded to all the IoT trends that we're seeing are kind of have the potential to reshape how we think about shop floor integration, and that's kind of what we're exploring, and Mai-Britt showed you some of that. So we expect to see a lot of activity in this space, both from our partners, and we're obviously looking at how is IoT going to reshape shop floor integration, supply chain integration, and in some ways it's the machine learning components are perhaps being overlooked by many because we can use that on the data that we already have in AX, right? So you don't have to suddenly worry about shop floor integration to take advantage of what we can do with machine learning, which again you showed.
Tons of data already.
Yeah.
So we have another question from Maurice. Can you clarify what is delivered with the first release? I assume what you mean is in relation to IoT. There are some, since we are on Azure now, the components of Azure are more or less available. It's not built in as such, so that you can just say this is a data stream, connect to that. But partners can start building their IoT solutions based on that whole base package of Azure IoT Suite and then Dynamics AX. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing ISVs and partners targeting specific verticals already having solutions that they're offering and also in the pipeline.
Yeah, I would just add to that, Mai-Britt, that, and certainly for those that have requested the presentation, in my email response to you, you'll find links to Azure IoT Suite and our remote monitoring and predictive maintenance solutions, for example. So accelerators that you can basically ramp up and start to use to do a lot of the things that we're showing today. And that's the delicate balance, as always, is there are some really fun, and I showed like the Lotus example. There's not many Formula One racing teams that to justify us putting that into some of their more exotic scenarios into core product. But many of these scenarios are not difficult to implement using Azure IoT Suite, and let's not forget Cortana Analytics Suite for the more advanced analytics as well, right?
Exactly. That's the one that we were showing from the scrap that I showed here. We're using Cortana Analytics, not exactly Power BI only, because Power BI can be used in some situations, but if you have a massive amount of data, it might be interesting to go for Cortana Analytics. But Power BI is also part of that. So how much of machine learning must be defined in advance, or is it truly identifying patterns independently, Phil asks. Now, obviously, even though that you might have a lot of data, it does require a model. It does require that you train the model to look for specific things. And it's not a trivial task, but what you might be seeing is that some of these ISVs and partners will start offering models within certain segments and certain industries, because based on the learnings that they have, they actually can produce a model that you can get and you can apply to your data set. If you go from scratch, obviously it's a bit more of a, not harder exercise. There are many books out there, mind you, a lot of theory and all of that, and a lot of things can be applied from that. But you need to somewhat know what you're searching for if you want to build a model. And that means you need to go in, you need to look at data, you need to go in and, first of all, somehow make sure that data fits correctly if it's scrubbed for incorrect data. And so it is an exercise, yes. But again, that's only if you're very specific to some new models. So Colin, do you have any?
No, not really. I think you've answered it, that really there's certain scenarios within both AX and CRM where we can act on our own data models, where we may be able to anticipate what those patterns look like, and so we can, to some extent, productize that. And an example of that I can think of is what we're doing in CRM 2016 around looking at the next best resolution of a problem based on analysis of previous cases, right? So it's pretty predictable, and we could do that, and we can do that, I could potentially do that in AX as well, right? Yes. But if you're looking at predictive maintenance, then every piece of equipment is going to have its own failure patterns, and some of those are well known and published, and some you'll basically have to do the learning on your own data sets, right? And that's part of configuring and setting up a solution.
Yeah, that's the hassle when you have big data. But when you get it right, then you start getting some insights out of it that you weren't able to just get normally. So Matthew had a question also here. Did I understand correctly that AX will no longer have versions? It would just be Cloud AX. That must be for you, Colin.
Yes, okay. So AX will continue to obviously evolve, and we will have waves of new functionality, much as in the, it is a slightly different model that we will, but it is getting massive amount of investment, new capabilities coming to the product. This first release of AX on Azure natively, and we have been deploying AX on Azure for some time, but this first version of the new AX will rapidly evolve, Mai-Britt is at the forefront of delivering those subsequent waves of new functionality. So don't think about it as something static and versions go away. There will clearly be waves of new functionality released. The exact naming of that and how it gets brought to market, we haven't made all of those disclosures yet.
No. So Pedro, I overlooked yours, sorry for that. Any new screens to manage capacity load by resource? The new UI gives us some capabilities, but not really new screens as such. There's a new Gantt chart that's been released now. And if there's any of interest, you're welcome to just write me a mail and I can get you in contact with the PM who is responsible for that. So that was a quick answer on that. Because apart from that, it is... Yeah?
Carry on. I thought you were...
No, I was just going to say that typically what you've seen before, we have just... There are some times where we had to reshape the whole design of the form just because we are cloud-based now and we're in a web page. Because we can't do what we could previously in just a simple form. But not really. We have put in these workspaces, and this is perhaps where you see most of the innovation went into. And there are some workspaces that have nice new forms and graphs and also views.
Okay. A couple more requests on the... please send me an email if you want the deck. I see a couple in the Q&A. It's probably easier if you just send me an email because I've got, I think, 20 requests already. So send me that email and I'll respond to all of those. I also see a question here that I'll take on Microsoft's DIRA, which is the discrete industry reference architecture. We are working with our broader Microsoft discrete manufacturing team on a refresh of DIRA because, yes, it's a little bit dated. It needs to be updated for a lot of the things we've talked about today. And I'm not quite sure on timing, but I've certainly got it near the top of my list to do that with with our worldwide manufacturing team. I think that was Alex that asked that question. So ping me on that specifically and I'll get you some idea of timing and understand what your specific interest is.
Yep, and Pedro had one on, is there any new functionality for lean manufacturing? Not specific, there are few improvements, but there has been done massive work in the way that you visualize the Kanban board and everything. So if you go in and you see that, you're going to be surprised what we can do now on a web page. So that's been spent a lot of time on that. And then anything we could do to easily improve. We have done it if we could make time for it. But no new major functionality for Lean has been released.
And we're talking about the current first wave of...
Yes, right now, right here where we are at the moment.
Right.
And since we are no version, anything can come from now and beyond. So I think that summed it up, didn't it? Unless I missed something.
There was one other question that came in through the chat, and it was just a similar question asking about AX7 and that it wouldn't be, that it's been talked about that it won't be vastly different from AX 2012 R3 CU10, and the question is, how true is this statement?
Well, there's lots of small improvements, and just a simple fact that you'll have the baseline functionality, that having said. But you will find that we had to do a lot of productivity enhancements when you work in a web page. So it could bring in new smaller things that weren't in CU10. So it's not like a complete nothing new. We did a lot of workspaces. We also did a lot of, for all the visuals, for instance, a new Gantt chart and all of that. So there have been changes in the sense, only hopefully for the better, because we needed to enhance it simply because we are now in a browser environment. And there are small areas like we have done the new job card device form, which is touch enabled, just to try out to see if we can move that also into a phone or tablet or surface area. And So you will have things all around that have been added. So it's not like a complete one-to-one, so to speak. But everything in CU10 will be in AX, this one, because we will always be porting any fix that comes from the old products into the new one. So.
And I think that was important to state. I mean, we obviously want to take AX 2012 R3 customers to the cloud when they are ready, or a hybrid cloud environment when they're ready. So it's important that we have functional parity, but I think Mai-Britt's touched on the fact there are lots of UI-related, productivity-related enhancements that may not be viewed as new business functionality, but certainly affect how you can leverage the product.
Yeah, but just the form that I showed with the release, production orders to be released, that's new functionality that hasn't been there before. But that was simply part when we designed that whole workspace. We needed to bring in this new functionality, and you'll find that in other workspaces as well. So there has been created new, but it's not like a whole new module has been added or something like that. So.
Well, we appear to be at the end of our question queue, and we're also at the top of the hour here, so probably a good time to start wrapping up. Mai-Britt and Colin, thanks so much for taking the time today to present to us and to the audience. And thanks for all the questions to everyone who's here today. I really appreciate those. Some great points raised. We did record today's event. We'll be making that available quite soon, so do look for an email notification for all of you who registered. And with that, we will conclude today's event. Thanks, and have a great day, everyone.